Okay, guys, another great week of work. As much as I enjoyed this topic this week, I would have much rather been in school and done this. I would have loved to have had some live discussions with you guys because you asked some great questions and you had some great thoughts about this topic. So as promised, I'm going to go ahead and answer the questions that you asked. We're going to start off with Jason and Justin, who asked about his boxing career. Carter's boxing career came to an end once he went to prison. He was in his late 20s, I think 27 or 28 when he went to prison. So he was 36 or 37 by the time, 46 or 47 by the time he got out. So his career was over. He never had a chance to fight for the middleweight championship. Ayana asked another great question. Why did the cops blame him? What was it about Rubin Carter that made him someone that the cops could pin the blame on? He was definitely a suspect, first of all, because he was driving a similar car to the one witnesses said they saw leaving the bar after the shooting. He did have weapons in the trunk of that car. They didn't match the ones at the scene, but he had guns. He was driving a similar car, and plus he had a criminal background. So nobody would be surprised if it was him. And Dylan talked about that in the song. I'm going to play the lyric for you right now. No one, even people from the black community, weren't surprised. So he was a guy who had a criminal background. People didn't think much of him. It made sense. It was believable that he might do something like this. Katie asked a question, if the police ever listened to Carter's side of the story. And the answer is not really. They didn't arrest him right away. They let him go that night. Now remember, someone who was shot looked at Carter and said, it's not him. So the cops did let him go, but 4 months later, they were finally able to get somebody to say it was Rubin Carter. So they never really ever listened to his story. That stuff didn't come out until he wrote his autobiography while he was in prison. And of course, Bob Dylan wrote the song that we just listened to. Kanasia and some others were a little confused as to what Bob Dylan had to do with the case. David, Jocelyn, and some folks wanted to know how he became connected. Dylan was just a singer. He didn't have any connection with Rubin Carter until he read Carter's autobiography. When Carter was in jail, after about 4 or 5 years, he wrote a book that talked about what happened, explained his side of the story, explained how the cops put the blame on him. Dylan was so interested in that, he went to visit Carter in jail. They got along really, really well, and Dylan ended up writing this song. Carter was a very smart guy. He knew how famous Bob Dylan was, and he knew that if someone like Bob Dylan supported him, his case would get heard and he might have a better chance of getting out. It took another 15 years or so, but that is eventually what happened. Bailey asked a great question. How influential was this song at the time? Yes, it was influential. Dylan was very well known. He was very famous. Bob Dylan, the song did play a part in people starting to talk about the case, newspaper stories being written about Carter's story. And the more that happened, finally he did get his case retried, put back in jail, as you know, and then eventually a couple of years after that, he finally did get released. Bob Dylan did take some liberties in the song. Not everything went down exactly the way he said. Sometimes when you're writing a story, you gotta have a little bit of fun with it, and Dylan did. But it was pretty close. Patty Valentine, the woman mentioned at the beginning of the story, actually sued Bob Dylan when the song came out. She felt that the song made her look racist, and in reality, she felt like she was a victim of circumstances. She felt that the cops sort of forced her to say what she said. The suit was dismissed, by the way. Ella wanted to know how Bradley and Bella were witnesses when they didn't even see anything happen. That's a great question. That is why Bob Dylan wrote the line, "How could the life of such a man be placed in the palm of some fool's hand?" Remember, Bradley and Bella were both criminals. They were robbers. They'd been arrested plenty of times. Another reason why the cops were able to force them to say what they said. Bello was running away from the scene at the time. Some people thought he should be a suspect, but that's how things played out. Franklin wanted to know if I thought he was innocent. I did think he was innocent. Sierra wanted to know why Artis was released before Carter. That's a great question. Basically, Artis did not have a criminal background. Carter did, so Artis was eligible for parole early. And then Micaiah, Ashley, Justin, Natalie all wanted to know if the truth was ever found out. No one ever found out the truth. No one knows who the shooters were.